I come now to my final excerpt, and that's for the interpretation that's designed for a fuller interpretation of art, and it's entitled Iconography, the application to the understanding of art. Having reviewed now the difference between iconography and iconology, let's look now at some examples. One of my favorites is the epitaph painting. And this is a very interesting bit of iconography that was peculiar to the times. Remember that in our definition we said that iconography and its elements and its conceits can last hundreds of years, or it can be a very short period of time. And the epitaph painting is one of those that lasted only a short period of time. We see them for a period of about 100 to 150 years, and then they disappear. Right? Now they originated in Sweden, very quickly spread to all the Scandic and Baltic nations, Norway, Finland, Denmark, etc. And they were originally designed to be in churches, but gradually they appeared in homes and near altars. And now, of course, they're found in museums all over the world. And when you come to an epitaph painting, look at the characteristics, and there are 4 of them. One, the work always is a family portrait, and it always includes the children, both the children who have died and the children who are still alive. The males are always to the right, grouped chronologically, as are the women to the left. There's always a central religious theme, and of course there's an epitaph. And the epitaph in general express morals of comportment and idealization. And here is a particularly fine example by John Dorsch, and it's the Jörgberg family. It appeared in the Slurp Church in Holland, in Sweden. And look carefully at this painting. It is absolutely a remarkable piece of epitaph iconography. You see the religious image, the epitaph, the men on the right, the women on the left, chronologically in descending order. We learn a little bit about the father, who had an interest in natural history, which was very typical for the times. But more interesting to me were the hidden faces. Here this man has his face turned away. You see part of a man here, part of another man, part of a child, an obvious dead child, and 2 others hiding. What's going on? Well, these were the children who had died. And these were the conceits and iconographic methodologies that were used by the artists to connote that. Sometimes the children were given complexions that were pale, sometimes they're backward to the viewer, sometimes they were hiding. But when you saw these partially hidden figures and pale figures, you knew that they represented the iconography of the children who had died. Another wonderful painting that is a rich iconographic one is one that I'm sure you've all seen, or many of you at least have seen, in the British Museum. It's by William Hogarth, and it's the Graham children. And it features Henrietta, who was 9 years old, Richard, who was 7, Marie, who was 5, and little Thomas, who was 2. And what has Hogarth done? Well, here in this delightful painting, you can see the children looking out at the viewer. A mischievous cat is staring at a canary, and the little boy is absolutely thrilled at the teasing. He's playing a little music box, as you can see, and baby Thomas, and you notice that he appears to be dressed as a little girl, but remember the iconographic contents of the time. In late 17th century and early 19th century England, little boys were very often dressed in very rich satin outfits, and it was, unless you knew that it was a little boy, beforehand it would be difficult to pick out by their dress of what gender they were. But what Hogarth does further is to let us know that little Thomas was painted, inserted into the painting post-mortem. He had died 6 months before the painting was completed. And Hogarth did this by putting over his head the angel of death carrying the thighs. Here's another interesting iconographic example. This is a bibliographic child sarcophagus from Ostia Antica in Rome, 1st century AD, and it's a typical bibliographic sarcophagi showing the mother or the wet nurse carrying the newborn child, the child as a toddler being bathed, the child as a latent child driving a little toy chariot being pulled by a goat, presumably the father with him. So this is a very typical bibliographic sarcophagus for a child. But there's one more interesting thing going on here. The three faiths, the Moirae. What in the world are they doing there? Well, they were the iconographic elements of the times, based on Greek mythology, that said that the fates controlled our lives. And on this sarcophagus, the fates are illustrated having done just that. I give you a more modern example of the three fates. This one is shown in Cranach Castle in Wales, and you can see here the three fates, the Moirae, Laxus, situated in the middle, who sang of things that were, and she apportioned lots in life. Clotho, who sang of things that were and apportioned the strings, the length of thread that was determined by Atropos. Atropos, interestingly enough, etymologically, is the word that is used in medicine for the death of a cell through atrophy. So there is the cloth, and there is Atropos with the scissors cutting the thread of life. So you have this iconography of the three fates who control the mores and the position of life depicted on this sarcophagus. Three more quick examples of iconography, paintings and artists that you're well familiar with. Here you have Francisco Goya in a painting called El Gajardillo, or Diphtheria. And what you see iconographically here, of course, is the father reaching into the child's throat, trying to pull out the biomembrane of diphtheria that suffocates and kills the child. Then you see the wonderful beggar boy with the club foot by Jose Rivera, who carries a little note in Latin. He has his stick, his walking stick. The little note in Latin says, for the sake of the church and for the sake of mercy, please grant me some alms. Some art historians consider that the painting is of a village idiot, while others think that Rivera has given great dignity and poise to a poor beggar. And the last one is by a painter that I'm sure many of you like and know and appreciate, and that's Toulouse-Lautrec, Henri Toulouse-Lautrec. And you see two ladies of the night. Remember that Lautrec had particular affinity for ladies of the night and was fond of painting them. But there is a strange child with a cast and a cane. And who is that? Well, iconographically, we know it's Lautrec himself, because Lautrec suffered from a disease called pycnodysostosис, and it's a disease in which the bones are brittle and there's no growth, and you ultimately have short stature. And we all know that Lautrec was indeed a short man who had a lifetime of multiple recurrent fractures, and here Lautrec places himself with a cast among the favorite ladies that he used to like to paint. Now, on first view, you might say, this is vulgar. You're showing me pornography here. And I have to tell you that it's not. That this is a very important iconograph of Roman times. It is the equivalent of the horseshoe, because it was considered the symbol of Felix and Felicitas. In fact, it says in Latin, hic habitas felicitas, here resides felicity. And it was considered a symbol of good luck, and it was placed outside the doors of most homes.